Revolutions were not a new idea before the years of 1750 to 1900, but they seemed to become more prominent during this time. A large factor to many revolutions was the rise of new Enlightenment ideals that promoted liberty and many other democratic values. New beliefs and thoughts about religious life, voting, slavery, and women's rights were just some of new points introduced during the time in many places all around the world. These included the French Revolution, the Haitian Revolution, the Latin American Independence Movement, and the American Revolution. Speaking of the American Revolution, some of the most consequential teachings during the Enlightenment had to do with natural rights and social contract. Natural rights were described as a right given to human beings by God, which also meant not by government, and those were life, liberty, and you guessed it, property. Now, the social contract stated that the power to rule was to be in the hands of the people, and by willingly giving some of that power to the government, in turn, the government had to protect their natural rights. These thoughts really took hold and became a large factor of the revolution in the British colonies of North America. When it comes to the French Revolution, it was largely caused by widespread disconnect with the French monarchy and the poor economic policies of King Louis XVI. Some more long-term effects included the unfair taxation of the people, cost of war, growing contempt in the second and third estates, and Enlightenment ideas. Now, across the sea, the French had a colony called Haiti, and it was made up of mainly of two different groups of people, the French plantation owners and a very, very large population of enslaved Africans who were working for plantation owners. The slaves in Haiti were suffering horrible living conditions as they decided to band together and rise up against the wealthy landowners. During this time, the French Revolution has spilled over into Haiti. The elites were loyal to the king, and the middle class supported the revolutionaries, which was another factor of the Haitian Revolution.
Colonial rule was imperialism in Africa and Asia, mostly done by European powers, but Japan was also involved. It was usually done through indirect rule or spheres of influence. It was mostly created because of culture, nationalism, and economic beliefs. In terms of culture, Europeans believed in the superiority of the white race and culture. They believed it was their duty to share these beliefs with the lower countries, which was known as the white man's burden. Darwinism, the belief that there was a superior group, influenced social and political realities and came to be known as social Darwinism. This was basically their excuse to how they were treating African and Asian natives. This meant strong nations believed they had the right to eat weak nations. Christianity also came to be spread through missionaries, forcing empires to be everywhere. They established schools and hospitals in countries they colonized and abolished slave trade. Now for nationalism. Nationalism is where a group of people have a strong common identity and become loyal to a single state. So these people from European countries began flexing their powers through colonization. Japan also has strong nationalistic ideas and began colonizing Korea, which angered China and led to war between the two. In terms of economics, countries were hungry for more raw materials. They needed markets to sell manufactured goods, so trade agreements were made since it was a competition to be the most powerful country. However, local people began resisting their power, leading to many fights and revolts. Many began migrating to the colonizers' countries because of job demands and opportunities. Over time, these revolts became larger in size, leading to the independence of most of the colonized states, which brings us to today's African, Asian, and European geography.
Oh, I'm sorry. You caught me reading. I'm going to go over the wars, specifically the World Wars and the Cold War, rather than the 7-Year War and the Opium Wars, which only involved a couple of countries. First of all, World War I, it was also called the Great War, using trench warfare and total war. There was competing states in Europe, and the two sides were the Triple Alliance with Germany, Italy, and Austro-Hungarian Empire, and on the other side was the Triple Entente with Russia, France, and Great Britain. It basically all started with the Serbian nationalists assassinating the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne. And also there was industrialized militarism and nationalism happening in Europe at the time. It ended in the Treaty of Versailles and the fall of the Ottoman Empire, and the rise of Nazi Germany and the Great Depression, which directly leads into World War II with fascism, mainly in Italy and Germany, with Mussolini in Italy and Adolf Hitler in Germany. They were both on the Axis powers, with Japan, who wanted to invade China and establish their puppet state, and on the other side was the Allied powers, with Great Britain, the US, and the USSR. War was central to the Nazi agenda, and it was fought in blitzkrieg-style warfare rather than trench warfare. It ended in 1945 with Germany losing, and things like the UN and the World Bank were created. At the end of World War II, the US and the USSR were on top, which directly leads into the Cold War, where they had very competing ideologies, with democracy and capitalism versus socialism and communism. China was also a communist at the time. The US and the USSR were in a nuclear arms race, with proxy war being fought to avoid nuclear war. Mao Zedong was the communist leader in China. Also, NATO and the Warsaw Pact. Also, Iron Curtain, proxy war, multinational corporations were very important at the time. The USSR lost, and the US won, with communism on a decline and capitalist and democratic ideas spreading.
After the Great Depression, the world market was scattered. There wasn't a good flow of products, and economies were isolated from each other. Starting in the 1950s, the world saw a period of reglobalization. During this period, goods were able to attain a remarkable amount of mobility. This was due to three factors. One was foreign direct investment, the second was short-term movement of capital, and three was the personal funds of individuals. A key player in the rapid growth of the world economy were transnational corporations. They were the group responsible for the foreign direct investments that allowed for a greater mobility of goods. They often moved their companies around in search of a place with the least restrictive regulations and the lowest wages. This accounts for some of the foreign investments I talked about earlier. With globalization also came new patterns of human migration. These migrants were driven by war, revolution, and the end of empires. A growing trend emerged from people from developing countries immigrating to wealthier, more established countries. Many moved to the US because of its reputation of wealth and opportunity, also the American dream. All in all, globalization was a positive experience in the sense that it brought more economic growth and increased life expectancy around the globe. However, the wealth was not distributed equally, and the wealthier countries ended up accumulating much more wealth than developing countries. It also caused the widening gap between the global north and global south. These negatives lead some people to wonder if globalization was really a good thing.